Thanks for checking out today's episode of The Experience Curve, where we explore the personal journeys of accomplished individuals, breaking down the steps they took to get where they are, which I hope just might inspire you on your own path forward. I'm thrilled to talk with award-winning producer and editor for film and TV advertising, Jo Clemente, and we're going to learn all about trailer editing. Now, Joe's career spans over 3 decades, and today we discuss the beginning. From the hustle of delivering tapes in his 20s to orchestrating the magic behind major film and TV trailers. Joe's career is an exciting blend of hard work, creativity, and a deep love for storytelling. We unravel the ups and downs of Joe's illustrious career, his insights into technology that could reshape the entire editing game, and the adventures that have turned him into the creative force he is today. When I first moved to LA, I was a production assistant on a bunch of movies, TV shows, like kind of rolling around doing my thing. I had a friend that was an editor. Well, he's a PA in the editorial department. I didn't know what an editor did other than the obvious cutting, right? Then you go into TV, you go into live television. There's so many different levels. When I first met you and Mimi, my wife said, you edit trailers. I was like, oh, okay. So what film is he on, or what TV show is he on? And she's like, no, he works at a trailer house. And I was like, what's a trailer house? So kind of like blew my mind that there was like another level of, artistry, of these people that come in after a crew of guys and girls or whatever, edit the TV show down.
Yeah.
You all come in and edit the trailer. So like for someone like myself, the layman 15 years ago, could you explain like what exactly that job and what that entails for someone that doesn't understand? Why isn't the person that's the editor editing the trailer, since they just cut all the other footage down?
Yeah, it's funny because it's a real special skill set. You have long form editors, even in television or film, and they cut the movies. And then you have short form editors, and I'm what you would consider a short form editor. And movie trailer editors are a very, very, very specific type of editing. If you watch a YouTube video versus a movie trailer, it is vastly different. In movie trailers, you have to do a lot of things right. You have to tell a really good story. A lot of it is sound as well. So sound effects, there's this big explosion, and then they say something really important,
Okay.
or, there's the music, and the music climaxes all the way up to a crescendo, and then boom, it goes pitch black, and then a moment, where the actor has said something really important. So the difference is short form editors are trained to do that specific thing, and long form editors are trained to do their thing. Very, very rarely do they cross. It's a very specialized thing, and I didn't learn that until I was a runner and a production assistant for a company.
Yeah, you basically, if I recall correctly, was it Arsenio Hall or something you were working on?
Oh,
And
yeah.
you were kind of making deliveries, and you started to get around these editorial houses.
Okay, so I'm gonna go all the way. I'll go all the
or
way
you can go back to Louisiana, wherever
I'll go all the way back. Yeah. How do you want to start?
No, I mean, you can tell, like, in terms of, like, I assume you came out here
Yeah.
to LA, like, without the idea that you wanted to be in editing.
No.
You just came out here and like, hey, my parents are moving or whatever,
All right.
and
So
here we are.
I'll start.
Yeah,
I'll start at the beginning. All right.
please.
So
Yeah.
okay. So the very beginning is I was at college at LSU, and I was a freshman at LSU in Louisiana, and I was watching the Arsenio Hall show. And me and my roommates, we watched it every single night. It was our thing, the dog pound and all that sort of stuff. And at the time, it was the hot show. It had all the great artists on it. It was probably it was my way to relax. And at the time, I was a freshman. I was rushing. I wanted to get into a fraternity because that was the cool thing to do in the South. I didn't realize that being Asian was a problem in a southern fraternity
Right.
system, right? So I went and I rushed. You know, I graduated high school like kind of a sorry, this is gonna sound fucking pompous, but can I swear on here?
Sure.
Okay. I graduated high school and I was like the guy. I had president of student council, the prom king, the whole thing. And then I get to Baton Rouge. That's in Alexander, Louisiana. And I get into Baton Rouge and I I can't get arrested. None of the fraternities would touch me. I rushed. Then the second year I was there, I rushed again, and none of the fraternities would take me again. And a lot of my friends were in the fraternities at that point, and I asked them. I said, "What's the problem?" And they said, "It's cause you're Asian." It's
That's literally what
yeah,
they. Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah. And some of them were even worse. Some of them were like, "We're not letting chinks in our fraternity."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. And so at that point, I was like, so back to Arsenio Hall. I'm sitting there watching Arsenio Hall,
Yeah.
and I'm like, fuck this. I'm getting out of here. My parents had moved to California my sophomore year in college, and I was like, I'm going to go work at the Arsenio Hall show. And my roommates are like, what? What do you mean you're going to work at the Arsenio Hall show? And I'm like, no, I'm going to go work at the Arsenio Hall show. And of course, I had no fucking clue. I had no clue how to do that.
No.
But I came out in May of 1990 to California. My parents were already living out here with my brother and sister were out here. And I tried to figure out how to do it. And I guess I should tell you how I did it.
No, I mean, I do recall, you were delivering tapes, your first
Yeah.
couple jobs. Where was like your first job?
Well, so once it's funny because I got out here like a fish out of water. Louisiana at the time was super conservative, ultra conservative, and me being in that sort of in that world, I was dressing ultra conservative. I walked up to Paramount Studios. Picture this: white bucks, red and white seersucker pants, white shirt, and a bow tie. A bow tie.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
I walk around 5555 Melrose.
Okay.
I know the address
Yeah.
because I worked there for so long. And I walk around and I go to the guard gate and I said, I want to work here. And the guy goes, what are you talking about? And I said, I want a job. And he goes, well, he looked at me up and down and he saw I had my resume in my hand and I had my bow tie on.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, maybe you can talk to human resources. And so I went into human resources and they told me, well, one of the great entry level jobs into entertainment is being a page.
Yeah.
And so I ended up applying and getting a job as a page. And for those of you who don't know,
That is a big thing for
Yeah.
whoever's listening.
yeah, for those of you who don't know, a page is a really great way to break into the entertainment industry. It allows you. So what you do is you wear this really bad suit and you seat audience members for television shows. I got the job and I was like, a lot of people shit on pages and they think it's a terrible job, but I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me my whole life.
Yeah.
So I would let in the audience for Cheers,
Yeah.
Arsenio, Different World, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'm dating Mad About You, those kind of shows. And I was on top of the world because I was like, I'm here. I made it, and I was getting a measly, I think it was $7 an hour. And I was super happy.
Yeah.
Super happy to get it.
So were you living with your parents at that time, or?
I was living with my parents at the time and I was going to school at Glendale College.
Okay.
And
GCC.
Yeah. And that's where I met my wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then when you came out here, your parents were already here. You went in, you said, okay, I want to get this job. At least you were in the air conditioning. Because I remember my first job being a PA.
Oh, yeah.
You're outside a lot,
Yeah.
depending where you're at. And,
Yeah.
Or you're sitting in your car, which has air conditioning, but it's, it's not the same experience as, you got to dress up and it's a whole, I know a couple people personally in New York too that were pages and they usually do turn out to have pretty solid career paths
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
The people listening might be like, "What's a page?" And
Yeah.
obviously you broke that down, but it really is a bigger thing than like I think for PAs it was like, how do I become a DGA trainee?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
like when I was in that world,
Yeah.
that was the thing that people were like, "Oh, I got to go take the test. And I get in. Can I get in? Can I get in?" And that was the thing
Yeah.
that we all wanted to get into as
I tried to do that.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
I did not get hired.
No, me neither. Me neither.
I did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to break into the entertainment industry if
When
you
you don't know anyone.
if you don't know anyone.
Yeah. I mean, I sat on my couch, or no, my desk in Hollywood. I was just emailing resumes all day,
Yeah.
all day, all day,
Yeah.
all day. And then I told this story before, but I got a lot of deferred work.
Yeah.
If the film gets picked up, you'll get paid, but
Yeah.
can you put in 12 weeks of work for free? And
Yeah.
it's like all this crazy stuff. And you're like, I don't know. So not knowing anyone is a huge disadvantage, and
Yeah.
especially for you coming from out of state like me.
Yeah.
Even LSU. I mean, even
Yeah.
if you stay there, who knows? I mean, like a lot of people that get college degrees and then they go into production. Oftentimes, in my experience, did you need it? I don't know. You
Yeah.
know? Which-
100%.
Yeah. So then you take this job, and then what happens? What pushes you to what's the sort of like, oh, editing? I want to give that a shot.
Okay, so I took the job. I was working at Arsenio Hall a lot. That was the show that I worked at a ton. And, it was the 90s were so R&B hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a big deal back then, and we'd see all these amazing artists. And one day I was not supposed to work, but someone called in sick, and I ended up working the show. And they said it's a mystery guest. I'm like, okay, whatever. And it was Prince.
Oh wow.
It was Prince.
And that was my growing up. Like you can ask my mom.
Yeah.
That was my thing. Yeah, Purple Rain was like my thing. Like
Yeah.
that movie was crazy.
So it was fucking Prince.
Yeah.
And he shows up. He's got a bus full of people, and it was all hands on deck. They had to bring in more pages because there were so many people. He took the whole hour.
Mhm.
He performed like 10, 12 different songs. And it was probably one of the most memorable things of my entire life to see him up close. I mean, like me and you, it was a year and a half ago. Before that, I was in my dorm room watching Arsenio Hall.
Telling people you're going to do it.
Yeah, telling people I was going to do it. And I had no idea I was going to do it. And there I am sitting there, and Prince is in front of me.
Yeah.
And I still have, they gave out these tambourines. I still have this tambourine
That's awesome.
that from the show. And he performed. And first of all, I couldn't believe how small he was, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he was warming up, I couldn't believe how he played the guitar. He played it as if it was part of his body. It was part of him. Yeah. And yeah, it's an experience I will never forget. And then another show I worked there's another show where MC Hammer was a big deal at the time.
With the pants? Okay.
With the pants. And he took the whole show, and it was like it was amazing because he had, at the time I was like, Prince showed up and he just had like one bus. But MC Hammer had 3 buses, and I'm like, what the how I started to go, how's he going to pay all these people?
The racehorses.
So my job was to make sure it was 2 busloads of dancers.
Wow.
So 2 busloads of dancers. There was stage 29, which was Arsenio's stage, and then stage 28. And stage 28, we were there, and we were actually my job was to make sure that all the dancers got dressed in between songs and run back onto the stage. And so it was chaos. It was fun, but it was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts. All right, so
No.
so how do I get into editing?
Yeah. Well, where does that lead you from in terms?
So after that, I end up working for the Arsenio Hall show, and then that show went away, and I ended up working for a show called Mary Lou Henner Talk Show. Mary Lou Henner from Taxi.
Yep. I didn't know she had a show. I remember.
Yeah,
I remember the actress.
So she had a talk show, and of course, she'd bring on some of the people from Taxi. I think
Okay.
I met Danny DeVito, Michael Douglas, a bunch of people. But the show wasn't on very long, and then I was a production assistant there.
Mhm.
I got a full-time job. I was no longer a PA. I was no longer a page. I was now a production assistant. So I had to like clean up her dressing room and park her car and get her lunch and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And then after that dissolved, and one of the producers on there said, "Hey, do you need a job?" And I said, "Yeah, I want a job on any show." And he goes, "Well, a friend of mine owns a trailer house." And I'm like, "What's that?" And they said, well, you make movie trailers. I was like, all right, whatever. So I went, I did the interview, and I got the job, and I was a runner. I was delivering tapes to Disney and Fox, and that's at the time there were tapes. There's no longer tapes, but there were physical 3/4 tapes. So of the rough cuts they would do for the trailers, that's how they watched them. So you had to have a runner physically deliver it. You couldn't, folks, you couldn't email it like you can now.
Yeah,
You couldn't
Dropbox.
post it the
Yeah.
way there was no World
Yeah.
Wide Web yet. So you had to physically drop off tapes. That's how I got over to into the editing sort of world. That was my first foray into it.
So you're going there, what, how many days a week? Every day?
Every day I was working like 12-hour days.
Yeah, PAs are
Yeah,
first
you're
there, last to leave.
yeah, you're at everybody's beck and call,
Mhm.
whatever they say. And so I ended up working for a company called New Wave Entertainment, and they were here in Burbank. And what happened was the editors were super nice to me, and I would some of my job was to take their cars to get them cleaned.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know. One day in particular, I went to a company. I had to deliver a tape to another trailer house called Aspect Ratio, which was the trailer house in town.
Okay.
And I was walking through, and I saw Range Rover, I saw Porsche, I saw BMW, I saw Audi, I saw like all the best cars, right? And there was some poor scrub that was like me washing those cars. And I said, is somebody famous here? I asked him. He said, no, these are the editor's cars. And I was like, oh.
Light bulb.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Geez, man, how much money do these guys make? So I started to become more interested in editing because of the money.
Yeah.
And at the time, so then I worked my way up to an assistant editor. And once I was an assistant editor, I was getting sound effects for editors. I was getting their bays ready. I was digitizing footage. I was bringing in footage into the console for them to edit with, and making sure they were completely sufficient. And one of the editors said, "Do you want to be an editor?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Why not?" And I said, I guess I could try. I mean, he's like, "Well, why don't you try the tutorial?" There was an Avid tutorial.
Oh,
3/4
you
tape.
go right down, sit down, and
Yeah,
just give it a shot.
I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And so the editors would go home at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And so as a PA, you're not even allowed in their bay,
not even close.
right? But this guy let me go into his bay. So he said, just don't fuck up anything,
Right.
and you can use my bay. So I went in at about 8 o'clock at night, and I did that tutorial till the sun came up.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And I enjoyed it. And then, so once I realized that, I ended up staying after the editors would leave and trying to teach myself how to edit, because not a lot of them were open to teaching me how to edit. I was going to, basically, you don't want anybody taking your job.
Sure.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's not like you go home and have Final Cut or something on your lap.
Yeah, you can't edit on your phone.
You had to be at that
you had
bay.
to be. You had to be in the edit bay. Yeah. I learned at night, and then I remember one of the owners of the company, a guy named Alan Haynes. He goes on the intercom and he says, "Listen, I need an assistant editor to cut a spot tonight." For those of you who don't know, a spot is a just short commercial for a movie. In this particular case, for a movie, and it was for it's a movie called Waiting to Exhale.
Oh, okay.
With Whitney Houston.
That's right.
And
you've been around Prince.
Right? He said, I need this spot cut tonight. And I was like, okay. And it was a radio spot. And I had only edited maybe like 3 weeks, right? So I stayed all the way. I went in at like 8 p.m. and I edited the best I could until 8 a.m. the next morning. And an editor came in and I still wasn't done. It was just a 30-second radio spot. Radio spots mean you don't need any video. It's not that hard. Yeah. You're just putting together audio. But an editor named Amy Weber came in the next morning at 8 a.m. and before everyone else came in, and she helped me. And she said, "Let me help you." And she put together the spot for me. She finished it for me. And I presented it the next day to the owner, and he was like, "Great." And from that point on, I was considered an assistant editor that could edit, that could cut.
Okay.
So, thank you to Amy Weber. I'm still in contact with Amy.
Yeah.
She helped me basically become an editor.
Mhm.
And after that, I was like, okay, then, you know, and then compounded with the fact that I saw how
Those
much
cars.
money,
Yeah.
those cars and
Yeah.
how much money they made, I was like, well, shit, maybe this is a career. Maybe this is something I can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, I liked it, and the money was good.
So you become the assistant or an assistant. How many were there? How many assistants in the
There
episode?
were, I think there were like 10 editors, and there were 5 assistants. So
Okay.
each assistant was an assistant to 2 editors.
Okay.
My editors were Barton Diffie and Van Harrell, and I'm still in touch with both those guys. I love
That's
them.
crazy.
Love them both. They're great.
Yeah. So like, so you continue working down there. Now, how many years are you putting into till maybe they say, okay, we're gonna have you do your own spots, or we're gonna have you get more involved than just the occasional car wash and
Yeah.
editing and stuff. You know, I've been there too, PA. You know, like why am I picking up espresso at
Yeah.
the don't ask. You know.
Yeah. Okay, so what ended up happening was there was one of the owners. I was one of the jobs as an assistant editor is you would put a slate on a tape, which meant almost like a little graphic that said the name of the spot, the voiceover announcer, and then the title of the movie, and
Kind of like when you're doing the action.
so they know what they're watching. Well, I misspelled a VO guy's name, Andy Geller. I misspelled the name, and I remember somebody saying, "Who sent this tape out?" Went on the intercom. Report to my office immediately. I went to the owner's office, and he fucking threw the tape at my head.
Wow.
Yeah,
you remember him too?
I do remember him. I am not still in touch with him.
You know how to spell his name though.
I know how to spell his name. I know how to spell the owner's name. I hesitate to say his name now because I don't want to.
You're still working.
Yeah, but he was a dick.
Yeah.
God, what a dick.
That's a lot in Hollywood. You'll meet, from time to time.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but
so that's when I decided, you know what, I'm gonna quit.
Like done like that.
No, at that job.
Wow.
That job. Yeah, I was like,
it's not worth it.
I'm not gonna let you.
The fraternity in Louisiana was better than that.
Yeah, yeah. So I quit. I quit my job. I had just proposed to my wife. So my wife was like,
"You're unemployed.
What are you doing? You just proposed. Yeah. You just
Can't do that."
I had just emptied out my bank account.
Oh no.
I had $0. I spent $3,400 on her engagement ring, and I had just proposed, and I was jobless. and I ended up getting a job as an assistant editor at a company called Studio City in Los Angeles. I don't know why it's called Studio City. It's not in Studio City, but
like Beverly Hills, whatever. But it's in like Calabasas.
It was called Studio City. It was run by a guy named Stu Weiss, who is one of my mentors and taught me a lot about editing. He hired me at $27,000 a year. I'll never forget the salary because he wrote it down on a piece of paper. He would always do this thing where he writes it down on a piece of paper and just shoves it over. And he said, "I'll start you at this." And I went, "Okay, fine." So I started the very first day. And I knew how to be an assistant. And he goes, "Oh," phone rings. He's like, "Hey, by the way, we need a spot for this movie for NBC. It's called Pandora's Clock. It stars Richard Dean Anderson."
Okay. Yeah.
It's about a plane that there's a virus and they can't let the plane land, before a certain time. So anyway, it's one of those NBC movies of the week. He goes, "Can you cut a spot?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll try."
I'm just gonna call Amy.
Yeah, yeah, call Amy. So I ended up cutting the spot, and this was no longer a radio spot. This was a TV spot, and it was like a cast spot. He's like, "You can do this. It's a cast spot." So a cast spot is like, all it is the Pandora's Clock, starring Richard Dean Anderson. Da 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 da, and you just all you have to do is show their face.
Okay.
Can't be that hard.
Yeah.
I was able to do it. Yeah. What I didn't know was I don't think Stu had any what's the word? He never anticipated using me as an assistant editor. He wanted me as an editor.
Okay. Yeah.
So he got
at that salary,
a $27,000 editor.
Yeah.
Which at the time, I don't know if you know what editors make, but that's very, very low.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got a bargain.
Yeah. So listen, I was happy to do it.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
brand new,
yeah.
So I was working nights, and I ended up working nights as a night editor.
So is that for people listening? So you will have people working days, nights, in terms of, is that like a common thing even today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
it
for someone
depends.
listening, it's like, oh, editing sounds cool. Like, is it just like 9
Ev-
to 6? Huh?
Every company's different.
Yeah. Okay.
Every company's different. And I think it's always depends on the deadline.
Got it.
If the deadline is tomorrow, yes, you're working all night.
But it's not like a usual, like, hey, you're the night person. You're the day
Well,
guy.
some companies. So this particular company, Studio City, we had a day editor from 9 to 5, and then the night shift started at 5 and would go till 2, 3 in the morning.
Sure.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got the job. So you're back here now saying like, okay, I'm an editor now
Yeah.
at this salary.
Yeah.
Right. And then do they start handing you bigger and bigger projects as you're?
Yeah. So after they were thrilled with my 10-second cast spot, which took no talent, they started handing me more and more things. And I had a really great creative director named Peter Walsh, took me under his wing a little bit and taught me what he knew. And then I learned a lot from a guy named Stu Weiss, the owner of that company, about music, about sound effects, about writing copy. So at that time, I was what's called a predator, and a predator is a producer editor. And in that particular in that particular job, I would produce, I would write the copy, I would edit it, I would do all the sound design, and then we would send it to NBC and they would put it on the air.
So the creative process for someone listening, right?
Yeah.
Can you break that down, like
Sure.
from music to sound effects to
Yeah.
what's producing versus editing and predator
Yeah. Well, so as you go up the ladder, let's say somebody who edited, what's the biggest film out right now?
Wonka, maybe.
Wonka. Let's say you edited Wonka.
Let's
right?
call it Wonka.
So as you get into these sort of larger, big budget things become more and more specialized. So an editor on Wonka is only editing. He's literally, all he's doing is putting the picture together and he's putting the dialogue together. And then usually a lot of times you'll have someone else do the sound, and you have someone else do the music, and then you'll have someone else do sound design, and then you'll have if Wonka's running through a field, they'll have somebody in 80 yard adding the crunching to the sounds of the feet running through the field. The more far you are removed from those high profile projects, the more the person has to do on their own. So as a predator, in my particular job there, we were doing the NBC movies of the week at the time, our company, Studio City. So what we had to do was we had to produce everything. Producing means, basically structuring of the spot. You have to edit all the picture together. You have to add sound design, sound effects, booms, whooshes, things that add, anticipation and drama to the piece. And then you had to find your own music. So you had to do it all.
It's like a one-man band.
You had to, yeah, it's a one-man band. But the best thing about that is, and I'm jumping forward now, is everyone's a one-man band now.
Oh, okay.
So I learned how to do all of those things. I learned how to write. I learned how to produce. I learned how to edit. I learned how to pick music. I learned how to do sound design. And, that was just such a great training ground at Studio City.
Yeah. So you're able to pick up all these skills at that one. How many editors are at this place?
This place had about 8 editors.
Okay, so
yeah.
You
well,
became...
I'm sorry. We had 16 editors. We had eight
then assistant.
8 bays, 8 editors during the day and 8 at night.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what I realized slowly was there were no assistants.
None? Because you're the one-man band.
Yeah. So you had to do everything.
Got it. Well, that's good, though, because when you learn in that sort of atmosphere and kind of DIY, in the beginning, for someone to just learn one skill, like you said, sound design or the leaves crunching or something, kind of puts you at a disadvantage, I think, going forward if you want that trajectory in your career, because now you can draw back to that in the future and say, hey, okay, I've done this because I understand producing. I understand.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, and with AI, a lot of those jobs are going away.
Yeah, I bet.
AI can do a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
So there's all of that. Yeah.
So then, okay, so you spent a couple years here, and then what is it? Your next step from there? Is it?
So after that, that was editing TV promos. So I
Mhm.
was editing promos for NBC, and then there's a different sort of genre called trailer editing.
Oh, okay.
So I was at a trailer house. Then I went into television and cut these TV promos for NBC. And then I went back to trailer editing because that's where the real money was for editors. That was where the biggest cash cow was. And so at the time, this was in the 90s, some of the editors were making, I mean, a lot of money. They were I mean, I don't know what you guys consider a lot of money, but
Somewhere in the six-figure range, I
yeah.
guess. Is
So
what
they're
you're thinking?
starting
Yeah.
at six figures
Yeah.
and they were making anywhere, I think some of them were making around $400,000
Wow. In the 90s.
in the 90s.
I mean,
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe to Oprah and Bill Gates, it's not a lot of money, but it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money right now for a lot of, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, I got to go
Again,
back,
sounds
back
good.
into
Yeah.
that direction. So I got a job at a company called The Ant Farm, and I started editing movie trailers there, and it was a great experience. One of my favorite mentors, Barbara Glazer, hired me there, and she taught me everything about story and about making a moment out of something that's not really all that important. Because if you watch movie trailers, you're really they're getting you to feel something, and a lot of times that thing isn't even there.
Yeah.
They do it with music,
Yeah.
they do it with sound effects, they do it with pauses, they do it with looks, they do it with all this different stuff. She really taught me how to do that. And so while I was at Ant Farm, I edited some movie trailers. I was kind of doing a lot of romantic comedy stuff. I did things like Mona Lisa Smile with Julia Roberts. I did like a lot of the Jennifer Lopez, Ben Affleck movies. when
Luckily, they're still
their
together.
their first go around, like Jersey Girl, and I even
Okay.
worked on Gigli, which was probably
Oh, yeah.
considered one of the worst movies of all time.
Probably up there. Yeah.
And I edited movie trailers for Soul Plane. That was Kevin Hart's first movie.
Oh,
Wimbledon. That was a tennis movie with Kirsten Dunst and Paul Bettany. Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. I did that trailer. These teenage girls, they give jeans to each other and they wear them all around the world. There was even a part 2.
there's a book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
It was America Ferrera.
Okay.
That was her first thing. Yeah, I was like the romantic comedy guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my genre there. Yeah, but it was a really great experience.
So when you're in film, though, right? Some people watch a trailer and they'll say, "Okay, I get it. I'm in. Like, I want to see it." Some trailers you watch, or at least I watch, and I feel like they gave so much away. Do I need to see the movie? Because I kind of know where this is going.
Yeah.
Like, what's when you're kind of in that world of film?
Mhm.
What's the sort of idea the what you put behind cutting a trailer
Mm-hmm.
to not give away too much, but give enough to entice people to want to see this film?
Now, I hate to burst this bubble, but when people are editing movie trailers,
Yeah, maybe.
they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care if they gave away the whole movie.
Okay.
What is important is who are we reaching the audience? Is this movie going to make money?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times the movie trailers are being put together by the marketing department
Understood.
and not necessarily the filmmaker. A lot of times, because if the filmmaker's huge, like Tom Cruise or Christopher Nolan or somebody then yes, at times they'll come in.
Or a director's cut or something of a film.
Yeah,
and-
somebody who has so much pull in Hollywood that they can control everything. But if you're just a normal director and you don't have that much clout, then the marketing department kind of does everything. And their job is to make sure that movie makes money. And if they show you the whole fucking movie,
Mhm.
they don't care.
Yeah.
Because they need to make sure that movie makes money, otherwise they'll lose their job.
Yeah.
I know that didn't answer your question.
No.
but-
It's good to know, though. I mean,
Yeah.
for people, someone listening saying like, "Oh, a film trailer, that sounds like
Yeah.
a lot of money,"
Yeah.
But the creativity may not be there depending on the level of the film and
Yeah.
maybe the pressure behind the studio of like when this is releasing, how many tickets we need to sell,
Yeah.
how the last one did. This is the sequel, blah
Yeah.
blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's when that sort of like the corporate suits, so to speak, come in and
Yeah.
influence how things are going to be.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize, and I don't know if it's still the case now because things have changed since then. At the time, if you made a $50 million movie,
Mhm.
you needed $50 million to market it.
Sure. Yeah. Marketing budgets. I don't
The
think
marketing
people.
budgets were
Yeah.
huge. That's why trailers were making so much money. In
Yeah.
trailer houses,
Yeah.
they were charging maybe like $50,000 for the first trailer, and then after that they were charging per hour.
Mm.
For fixes. And some of these, I mean, some of the trailers, they would go to like version 75F. And when I say F, they would go, okay, this is version 75, but here's A through F, different versions of music. And so you would charge per version. And the money was just flowing. I mean, it was
Paycheck. Yeah.
crazy. It was crazy the amount of money some of the owners were making.
Now, when you have these bigger films and these bigger directors and bigger actors, or writer, is there any interaction that maybe an editor, someone editing the trailer, do they get involved? I guess maybe if they're producers on the film, or is that you dealing more with the studio execs on that?
Well, yeah, like I said, it's mostly the studio execs. Now, there were certain times, I think, what movie was I working on? Tenacious D.
Oh yeah, Jack
Tenacious
Black
D, The Pick of Destiny.
Yep.
Jack Black.
Line Cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jack Black came in, and he wanted to come in and look at the cut. Or I didn't work on Mission Impossible, but a buddy of mine did, and Tom Cruise came in, and he would come in and he would have say. And then I think Vince Vaughn came in, and one time for, forget what movie it was for, and then Bruce Willis had come in. But again, these are, like I said, it's those guys that have
the clout.
Yeah. These are, I mean, they're A-listers, so their name simply gets the movie made. So they get to say, oh, I don't like the trailer, or and it's really about how hot you are at the time, whether or not you get to go in those rooms. And most of them were producers, so if they have money in the movie, or if they helped to get the financing for the movie, then they usually come in. It depends on, and then there's other people that just sort of just get their name on the title as producer, and then they don't
Yeah.
They don't even do press. They're just like
they're the manager of the writer. Or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Like
They just get, they just get the credit. So it's different every time.
So then, comparing that to like the TV spots, and right, were you in that world where you're just kind of doing like one portion of it, and someone else is handling the sound design, someone else is handling versus TV, where like you're doing everything?
So I was doing everything as a Predator at Studio City, and when I went to the Ant Farm, again, we went back to specialization. So we had a whole music department, and I'd go, hey, I need 10 cues that are sweet, that will allow me to put dialogue over it, that aren't too loud, So they would, and they'd upload these cues for me. Before, I had to go find all that stuff myself,
Yeah.
And then I tell my assistant editor, I need 50 whooshes, or I need 6 booms, or whatever it is. So I'd had an entire, there were so many specialized departments, again, because there's more money.
You got to invoice 75G. Or
Yeah. You gotta pay for everybody. But yeah, again, there's more money in trailers than there are in TV at the time. I don't know if that's still the same. TV's so good now,
So you're at there. How long do you stay at this place, the Ant Farm?
I was at the Ant Farm for 6 years. Right around that time, there was it was the housing crash.
Oh, like 08.
Yeah. Around that time, there was a big housing crash, and budgets shrunk a lot. And at the time, they were paying per cut. Like I said, you would do like a trailer for $50,000, and then you would do revisions, and you would get paid per revision. What ended up happening there at the time was somebody, I think it was Fox, that started doing it, and they would say, here's $3 million, which is a ton of money, but we want every TV spot, we want every radio spot, we want every poster, we want every trailer, we want all these spots that they were paying for individually. You can imagine how much money that was, and now they're just saying, here, you got to do it all for this.
Yeah.
So it was a complete restructuring of the industry. So people's salaries started getting cut. that's when I decided to move over into, I started to think, well, maybe the ship has sailed. Maybe that's it. Which is weird because I always thought that the money would just keep coming,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of do when you start making a lot of money. It's just, there's this sort of
Or you're just seeing what these movies are making at the box
yeah,
office, and you're
yeah,
like, okay, like why would anything change? It's gonna get better,
yeah. It's gonna
right?
get better. Yeah, I ended up leaving the ant farm, and I went to work at a company called Trailer Park, which is actually still in Hollywood and still doing really well. And then I went to go work at Universal Studios on the lot
Mm.
in the trailer department over there.
Now, what's that experience like? 'Cause that has to be pretty cool being on the
So
lot,
I
right?
loved being on the lot.
It's
So
not Paramount with the Sears Tucker. Yeah.
I was at Paramount, on the lot there as a page, but then I really wasn't in.
Yeah.
I was a grunt.
Now you're like an established,
Now I'm an
right?
established guy. I'm working at Universal, and I worked at Universal for 2 years, editing movie trailers there. I did movies. What did I work on over there? I did the trailer for a movie called Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins.
I remember that. I remember seeing that trailer.
Yeah.
I never saw the movie, but I remember the trailer. I remember seeing the one sheet.
Yeah, I ended up working there. It was great. There was at the time Conan O'Brien had just
Oh, just signed that deal.
to sign that
Okay.
deal. So I would see Conan in the gym,
Oh, no kidding.
all 6'5"
I
of
have
him,
to
or
say,
whatever.
yeah,
He's so freaking tall
yeah.
with his giant red
The hair. Yeah.
that red
Yeah.
wave of hair that he has. Yeah, so I would see him at the gym, and it was just fun because The Voice had just started. So there's a lot of
They'll have excitement.
there's a lot of excitement on the lot. And I remember one time I'm going to get a sandwich, and I see this small man, and he was driving this beautiful golf cart. It was like all the other golf carts on the lot were just plain regular white golf carts, and this one was green, and it was like it was green, and it had like wood grain paneling, and it had like a grill on the front. And this small man with a hat on came out, and I said, "Oh, I said I love your golf cart," and he goes, "Oh, thanks." I had to said a few things to him, but nothing. I didn't know who he was, and my buddy comes over and he goes, "Dude, you're talking to Steven Spielberg."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, "What?" So that was a real thrill. You'd see people like that on the line. And that's the attraction of being on the line. It's fun to
Absolutely.
see celebrities and stuff, but yeah, that was cool.
So then you stayed there for, you said 2 years?
I was there for 2 years, and then they had cutbacks.
Oh, okay. So same thing,
Yeah.
you're facing with the housing crash in 08.
Yeah.
A couple years later.
Yeah, so they had cutbacks, and that the year that I was there, Universal did not have a great year. Or the second year I was there, it didn't have a great year. I think I was there 3 years to the end of the third year. So they resized, and they got rid of everybody.
Yeah.
And that's when I ended up getting a call from a reality company, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do reality. It's kind of cheesy. But I ended up taking, and it wasn't as much money. I ended up getting a call from a company called Endemol Shine North America, and a guy named Michael Weinberg said, "Hey, I got your number from a friend," and he said, "Do you want to audition for this job?" And I'm like, "What do you mean audition?" I said, "Is this an on-camera job?" And they're like, "No, we want you to audition to be an editor." And I was like, "What? I've been doing this for 15 years.
Right.
I'm not."
Look what I drive. No.
Yeah. and he goes, "No, we want people to audition." And I was like, "All right, whatever." So I needed a job. I ended up having to take a huge pay cut, and I auditioned against 45 other editors.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess like you said,
Yeah.
people were downsizing and stuff.
Yeah.
So
So it wasn't a great time for editors at that time. So I ended up getting the job. It was like 100,000 less than I was making. It was a big pay cut. But what they said was, "We'll give you a 3-year contract," which at the time was really hard. You couldn't get guaranteed work. But they said, "We will get you back to your salary in the 3 years. So at the end of the 3-year contract, you will be back to where you were." It's like, okay, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
So that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 15 years ago, and I'm still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then that's a different medium, right? Obviously the film to the television, but the reality component.
So the reality component, it's still in the same neighborhood,
Mm.
because now what I'm doing is I'm writing, producing, and editing sizzle reels to sell reality shows to networks.
So someone listening, when you say write, are you coming up with the script like the copy for what the
Yeah.
voiceover is?
Actually, I
Or-
I write some of the time now. A
Okay.
lot of the times, our creative director.
We're in the 15 years,
Yeah.
you know.
So in the past, when they would pitch television shows, they would go in with a deck. They call it a deck, and you would end up saying, "Hey, here's the idea for the show, and here's the PowerPoint," and you'd watch this thing. But what this company did was they said, "Hey, let's show a trailer of what our idea is," and so they wanted a trailer editor, so that's why they hired me. And now it's just industry standard. You go in with a tape now or a video. You go in and say, "Hey, this is the idea for our show." I didn't know it was groundbreaking at the time, but now it's a normal thing. But so I work in development now, and we at Endemol we do a ton of reality. Our staples are Big Brother, which has been around forever. I don't know how many years. We've got Master Chef and Master Chef Junior. We've got quite a few reality shows, and recently, you know what's going on here in LA. There's just been so much striking.
Yeah, of course.
So with all the striking going on, there's like there's no content. There's nobody shooting. But reality can continue to shoot because they don't really use actors. They don't use actors and they don't use writers. So as a result of that, we've been pretty busy. And I'm very, very, very grateful that, at a time when a lot of my friends and who are in the industry aren't working, that I get to, provide for my family.
Boy, that's huge. And what would be like someone listening? What's your sort of day to day like, or not day? Maybe a day to day changes, but like an overall week for you. Maybe
Mhm.
what does that look like for someone saying, okay, he works at this company. They do a lot of reality based television. What's his week look like?
So I usually get in the morning. I check emails, make sure that everything's and there are no fires to put out. The beauty of my job now is that they kind of let me do my own thing because I've been doing this for like 22 years
Mhm.
now. So they kind of let me do my own thing, and they'll say, "Hey, this is the idea." They'll show me the deck of what they're trying to pitch, the television show they're trying to pitch, and I'll either write a script or they'll give me a script and of the outline of the main idea that they're trying to get across, and then I will usually find found footage. And that what that means is I'll pull from movies, I'll pull from television shows, and I will put together a reel based on that. My day to day is I walk in, I look at a blank timeline, I go, how the hell am I going to do this? And then by the middle of the day, I'm like, okay, it's coming together. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I got a little bit of it done, And then by the end of the week, usually in about a week, I have something I can present. And I'm like, and then after that, it's change city. I mean, people are just, everybody has
Yeah,
to put in their 2 cents about
collaboration.
the collaboration.
Teamwork.
Yeah. So I always just take pride in the first cut,
Mhm.
and then after that, it's like,
Everyone
who
adds
knows?
their
Yeah.
So then, where do you see the sort of the future going in this sort of editorial space?
It's really interesting because with AI, it's scary. There's certain jobs that are going away.
Yeah,
But
you mentioned that earlier, and I was
yeah, I
kind of
mean,
get
it's
back to that.
just so much AI. Uh, there you can even, I mean, even for this podcast today, right?
Yep.
They asked you if you wanted to do
Yeah, there's
if you
AI
wanted
everywhere.
separate files or if you wanted AI to cut it together for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. I still don't foresee a time when AI can. I don't know. But right now I don't think AI can predict a human emotion.
Yeah.
And know when somebody's feeling something. No. Once we get there, we might be in trouble.
Yeah, never say never.
For now, I think we're okay in terms of the editors. Now there's things like the colorists, people who color video. You can do that. You can by the touch of a button now. It may not look as good as the movies, that you want to emulate. You can do sound now. You can say, hey, you can tag it and you can say, hey, this is a piece of dialogue. You always need to be able to hear this person talking. And, and you can do things like mixing the music. You can say, oh, when somebody's talking, the music needs to dip. You can just tell the AI to do that. There's a lot of that. And I use Adobe Premiere, and that software is always learning. So it's interesting, maybe I'm getting out at the right time. I'm 53 now, and maybe in another 10 years I'll be done. But it's kind of scary. We're it's like Terminator.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's true. It's interesting how it's going to affect different industries, and who really knows from time to time. But on a lighter note, you've also done like voiceover work in the past,
Yeah, I
right?
have,
Like
yeah.
like in terms of editing. How did that come about? Was it through trailer editing that you're like, wait a minute, I can just lay my own voiceover here,
Yeah.
and then it became like, wait a minute, I can actually do this.
Okay, well, what I failed to mention, I was going to gloss over it, but I didn't. When I first moved out to LA,
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be an actor.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you were this
just like
class
everybody else.
president, right? Yeah.
I thought I was going to be an actor. I was like,
or homecoming king, right?
yeah, I thought I was going to be an actor, and I decided to try it. So I got an agent, and I got my headshots done, and that's what I thought I would do. So I got an agent. I went to my first audition. I booked it. I had a commercial. It ran for 13 years. It was called the Computer Learning Center.
Okay.
And I didn't get residuals, but so at the time, I told Catherine, my wife, I said, it's easy.
Yeah.
What are they talking about? This game's not hard. I never landed another thing after
Okay.
that. I went like 2 years with nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't do this. That's when I started editing.
Okay.
That's when I started. But what I did learn is how to talk on camera.
Mm-hmm.
I was a terrible actor, but I did learn how to talk on camera. And when I ended up learning how to edit, at the time, it's not really the case anymore, but there's always voiceover. There was always voiceover in editing. So you go, now,
Yeah.
Rolling Stone gives this movie 5 stars, all that sort of copy. So you would read that as an editor, you would read that into your own microphone until the real guy came along. Right.
Understood.
Yeah. So that's where I kind of learned how to do voiceover. I enjoyed it. And then I ended up they would go, oh, well, let's just use him, So I ended up starting to make a little bit of money in voiceover. I never made enough to make it my career, but I still do voiceover now for some of the reels that we do at Endemol Shine. And I have a regular client, a children's show called Kabillion. I don't have a big voice, but Kabillion, this kids network, likes my voice for younger, now on Kabillion, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I say a lot of things like Transformers X and My Little Pony and all that sort of stuff. So I learned I honed that skill by doing it so much as an editor.
Yeah. And you're also doing YouTube. You have a YouTube channel.
I do have a YouTube channel.
Because you're a very gear-centric person. You know a lot about video, audio, obviously.
Yeah.
Cameras.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Man, I love this stuff. This is a DJI Pocket 3. I love this new camera. It has face tracking. It's great. I love all these little toys, and it's terrible because they're expensive.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, during the pandemic, there's a vlogger named Casey Neistat, and Casey Neistat started this class. Hey, he's like, hey, I'm going to teach you guys how to make YouTube videos. I was like, okay, I'll jump in. I paid $250. I was like, I'm sitting at home. I might as well learn how to make YouTube videos. I already knew how to edit, and I knew how to do voiceover. So I said, well, let's try it. So I ended up taking his class. It was funny because he ended up teaching us how to make these YouTube videos, but I kind of one of my video at the end of the class was kind of like the most featured one.
Okay.
So I ended up putting the video up on YouTube, and it got, I don't know, 20,000 views or something like that, which is a lot for somebody like me, and I was like, oh, this is fun, and so I decided to keep it going because what it allows me to do is it allows me to keep using, all this gear.
Yeah.
And it gives me a reason to use it.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just sitting at home.
Right.
So but I do love. It's funny because you do a job all day, right? And the last thing you want to do is do that same job when you go home. But to me, I do my job at work and it's creative, but it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's for them.
Yeah.
It's for the show. It's for whatever. But this is just for me. And a lot of times now, instead of paying for therapy, I talk to people on YouTube.
Yeah.
I got to go, guys, this is what I'm going through. My son just graduated from high school. He's getting ready to leave the nest. And me and Catherine, we don't know what to do with ourselves, and it's therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
And I enjoy making these sort of creative little videos for myself,
Mhm.
mainly. I don't know if it'll ever turn into anything, but it's just, it's funny. There's a guy named Mark Duplass. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Duplass
Director,
Brothers.
actor, writer, yeah.
Yeah. And he always said, when I pick projects, I do one for them and I do one for me.
Mm.
And so this is the one for me, because he's like, I need something to pay the mortgage, but I also need something that has, he called them soul points.
Yeah.
And it's creative for me.
Yeah.
And just that I never knew that I was creative until I started editing, but now I realize I'm a creative person and I need an outlet.
So what's the name of the channel?
It's called Jo's Talking. JO''S Talking.
J-O on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah.
Where else can people find you online?
You can find me at Whiskey Joe 2. You guys can find me at Whiskey Joe 2 on Instagram and Jo's Talking. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I'll put it in the show notes,
Yeah.
like clickable links and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it, dude. This has been awesome learning, so much about you. I know we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
But sitting down and just truly like understanding what you do for a living,
Yeah.
sharing that with people who might be interested.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I truly think that the people that should watch this show or listen to your podcast are the young folks.
Yep.
They're trying to figure out, what the hell am I going to do with my life? The world is changing so much with, like we said, with AI, and there's all these different people that you feature on your podcast that, they had to get there somehow.
Yeah.
And if you can give anyone just a little insight on how to get there, through all these different career paths, it's worth listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you again.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Experience Curve. Please take the time to share this podcast with a friend or colleague to help get the word out about my show.